The storm outside had barely begun, but inside the dimly lit restaurant in downtown Seattle, a storm of an entirely different kind was already waiting to erupt. Catherine Hale, polished, powerful, and known across the corporate world as a CEO with an iron spine, stepped inside with her coat draped over her arm and a confident stride that suggested she controlled every space she entered. But all that confidence cracked the moment her eyes landed on the man seated at the corner table, broad-shouldered, quiet, dressed plainly, gently wiping the mouth of a little girl who looked no older than 5. She froze. This couldn't be her blind date. Her best friend had promised someone successful, emotionally mature, and stable. Instead, there sat a man who looked like he came straight from a construction site, with calloused hands and a shy smile, doing his best to keep his daughter's hair clipped back with a pink barrette. And for a moment, a short, cruel moment, Catherine let out a quiet laugh, not out of humor but disbelief. A CEO matched with a single dad? If you're watching this, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, unexpected connections, and second chances. It truly helps us bring more stories to life. Catherine hadn't meant to judge him so quickly, but her life had been built on hard lines, swift decisions, and never letting anything unpredictable into her structured world. The stranger, who introduced himself as Marcus Hale, no relation despite the shared last name, stood politely and offered a handshake with such quiet strength that Catherine almost felt embarrassed at the coldness of her earlier laugh. His daughter, a small girl with soft curls named Hannah, hid behind his leg, peeking up at Catherine as if she were meeting royalty. Catherine, used to commanding boardrooms, suddenly had no idea what to do with her hands. The dinner started awkwardly, with Catherine maintaining polite distance and Marcus doing everything he could to keep Hannah entertained while trying to hold a conversation. Catherine had built skyscrapers of success around her life. You didn't become one of the youngest CEOs in the region by being soft, and yet something about Marcus's gentleness unsettled her carefully constructed world. He listened more than he spoke. He chose his words carefully. He smiled only when he meant it, and when Hannah spilled her drink, causing the tablecloth to soak in seconds, he didn't scold her or panic. He simply lifted her into his lap, whispered something that made her giggle, and wiped the mess with the patience of a saint. Catherine's chest tightened. She hadn't realized how long it had been since she'd seen real, unfiltered tenderness. Still, she wasn't ready to let down her guard. She excused herself early, citing early morning meetings. Marcus didn't try to stop her, simply thanking her for the dinner and wishing her a safe drive home. Hannah, however, waved at her with both hands, as if saying goodbye to a newfound friend. Catherine forced a gentle smile back, one she didn't quite understand herself. The rain had grown wild, lashing the pavement in sheets as she drove home. But halfway across the Aurora Bridge, her car jerked violently. A loud thud followed. The steering wheel stiffened. The engine sputtered. Panic shot up her spine as the tires skidded. She pulled over, heart pounding, rain hammering against the windshield like angry fists. When she stepped outside, the cold slammed into her. The front tire was shredded, torn open by something sharp. She reached for her phone, but there was barely any signal, and the emergency line kept cutting out. Cars passed without slowing. The bridge groaned beneath the heavy wind. Catherine, usually fearless, had never felt so small and helpless. 10 minutes later, though it felt much longer, a familiar truck pulled up behind her. Headlights sliced through the storm. A man jumped out with a hood pulled low, and when he stepped close enough, Catherine recognized him instantly. Marcus. Hannah sat in the back seat, bundled in a fluffy blanket. Eating crackers like this was all perfectly normal. Marcus didn't hesitate. He didn't ask why she was out alone, or why she hadn't called for help. He simply knelt beside the ruined tire and got to work. Catherine watched him through the blur of rain, noticing details she'd overlooked earlier. The precision in his movements, the strength in his arms, the steady focus in his eyes. This wasn't the clumsy, unsure single dad she had naively judged. This was a man who knew how to fix things. A man who didn't run from storms. But the storm had other plans. The wind picked up violently, shaking the bridge in a way that made Catherine grip the railing. A truck roared past too close, splashing a tidal wave of icy water onto Marcus, nearly knocking him off balance. Catherine gasped, reaching instinctively, but he steadied himself and kept going. Within minutes he had the spare tire installed. He guided Catherine into her car, ensuring the heat was on, then jogged back to his truck. She expected him to simply drive off, another act of kindness she didn't deserve, but instead he parked in front of her, turned on his hazard lights, and escorted her car off the bridge, staying close enough that she felt protected the entire way down. When they reached safer roads, he pulled beside her and signaled for her to roll her window down. Rain dripped from his hair, his jacket soaked, but his voice was firm. "You shouldn't drive the rest of the way alone. Follow me. I'll take you home." Catherine didn't argue. For the first time in years, she let someone else take the lead. Back at her apartment building, Marcus walked her to the door. Catherine felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Gratitude, certainly, but something deeper, too. She apologized for laughing at the restaurant, admitting she had been wrong, that she had judged him unfairly. Marcus simply shook his head and told her not to worry, saying life gave everyone room to grow, even CEOs. But that night, long after Marcus drove away, Catherine lay awake replaying everything. The look in Hannah's eyes, the calmness in Marcus's hands, the way she had felt safe for the first time in a long time. Something had shifted in her, something she wasn't ready to ignore. Over the next few weeks, they saw each other often, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by coincidence, though Catherine suspected Hannah had something to do with at least some of those coincidences. Catherine found herself softening in ways she hadn't expected, joining them for ice cream, sitting through children's movies, even helping Hannah pick out a dress for her preschool recital. The more time she spent with them, the more she saw a side of life she had never allowed herself to explore. She learned that Marcus had once been in the military, trained in emergency response and tactical rescue, but had left after losing his wife to cancer. He had chosen a quiet life afterward, becoming a carpenter to stay close to his daughter. He carried pain, but he didn't let it define him. He carried responsibility, but he didn't let it crush him. He carried love, and he shared it freely. And Catherine, she found herself craving that gentleness. But storms never stay quiet forever. One evening, as Catherine left her office late, she stepped into the parking structure and immediately sensed something was wrong. The lights flickered. A heavy silence hung in the air. Just as she reached her car, a masked man stepped from behind a pillar, demanding her purse and keys. Catherine froze, fear locking her bones. She tried to hand over her bag, but her shaking hands fumbled, and the man grew aggressive, grabbing her wrist painfully. Catherine cried out, struggling. Before she could blink, a shadow moved in the darkness behind her attacker. A hand shot out, gripping the man's arm, twisting it until he dropped the weapon with a sharp cry. The masked man tried to fight back, but his efforts were useless against the controlled, decisive force that overpowered him. Catherine stumbled backward, breathless, eyes widening as the attacker was pinned to the ground. When the light steadied again, Marcus was standing over him. Catherine nearly collapsed. Marcus helped her stand, checking her for injuries. She shook uncontrollably, tears running freely, tears he wiped away gently, reassuring her that she was safe now, that he would always make sure she was. The police arrived, took statements, and escorted the attacker away. But Catherine couldn't stop staring at Marcus. His hidden skills, the ones he carried quietly, humbly, without pride or display, had saved her life. That night, Marcus didn't leave her side. He stayed with her until sunrise, sitting by her window, keeping watch like a silent guardian. And somewhere between the dark hours and the first rays of morning, Catherine realized she didn't want him or Hannah ever to leave her world. Weeks later, standing in a quiet park as autumn leaves fell around them, Catherine took Marcus's hands and asked him if he believed God sometimes sends people into our lives not to test us, but to heal us. Marcus nodded, eyes gentle, telling her he had been praying for something good, something hopeful, something that felt alive again. Catherine whispered that she wanted to be that hope, not just for him, but for Hannah too. Their stories, once separate storms, had finally merged into something steady, warm, and full of grace. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps keep these emotional stories alive. Special request before the ending, comment second chances matter if you believe kindness can change a life. And so, a CEO who once laughed at a blind date found the man who would not only save her life but gently teach her how to love again. And a single dad who had weathered too many storms found someone who finally saw the strength behind his quiet soul. Together, they built something stronger than success, stronger than fear, something beautifully, unexpectedly real.